All right, good morning, everyone, and welcome back to C2MCI's the EDI Catalyst podcast. For any new listeners tuning in, I am your host, Dr. Emily Albright, and in this podcast series, we explore topics of equity, diversity, inclusion, and indigeneity in STEM, featuring guest speakers from diverse backgrounds and perspectives, discussing their lived experiences, as well as providing any tips or resources on how to create more inclusive and equitable environments. Through this, we hope to inspire you to become a catalyst for change in your own communities and workplaces. So, with that, I'm really excited to have Dr. Juliana Vidal with me today, who is currently the Higher Education Program Manager at Beyond Benign, which is a non-for-profit company that develops and disseminates green chemistry and sustainable science educational resources to different educators, students in the community to help them practice sustainability through chemistry. And maybe Juliana will tell us more about that in a minute. But we're honored to have her here today to join the conversation and tell us a little bit about her experiences. So welcome, Juliana. How are you doing today?
Thank you so much, Emily. Thank you so much for the invitation. I'm super excited to be here and talk to you. So yeah, I'm happy to take any questions at any point. And I'm happy to discuss everything with you.
Yeah, as we were mentioning before we got started, it's a nice sunny day here today in Kingston. Juliana is also located here in Kingston, so sometimes we have guests from all over, so it's nice to have somebody local today. So, as always, we like to start off if you can kind of share us a little bit about your journey in STEM. What inspired you to pursue chemistry? How did that path lead you from Brazil to Canada? And eventually your current role at Beyond Benign.
Awesome. So hopefully I won't bore you too much by that. But yeah, I was born and raised in Brazil, in a city called Juiz de Fora. My state is very known by our cheese. I love cheese. The cheese there is delicious, super, super good. I learned about chemistry in high school, and my chemistry teacher, she had a big influence on me. Like I always liked how you can explain like this microscopic things, thinking at the very molecular level, and how, like, to me, that was magic, right? And I really wanted to learn more about it. So before that, I wish I wanted to do marine biology because I really like whales, but that didn't work out. So I went for chemistry. I did my bachelor's degree. And in the very last year of my undergrad, I was reading this environmental chemistry book. And there was one page about what green chemistry was, explaining this field and everything. And I thought it was so wonderful, like, to me, how we can, like, think about human health and the environment and actually make our processes and products in the way that we're thinking about that through chemistry. And I really wanted to, like, study more about it, learn. And that was in the very last year. So I didn't know what I was gonna do. So I did my master's. And my supervisor, he tried to be as try to make the project as being chemistry related as possible. So I was going to teaching labs and getting silver residues and transforming those into metallic silver using like old parts of a stove, something very like OG, very hardcore. And then after my master's, I really wanted to learn English. I really wanted to try something different. I really wanted to see snow. I regret that decision. I saw a lot of snow, a lot in Newfoundland. We had the Snowmageddon, so it snows like a meter of snow sometimes. It's crazy. But anyways, I decided to move. So I basically Googled green chemistry in Canada. I found this professor called Francesca Curtin at the Memorial University of Newfoundland. I emailed her. I was like, I really want to learn more about green chemistry, and she invited me to be part of her group. So I came to Canada with my husband and my dog in 2017. And then during my PhD, I was very like worried and aware of the whole communication science thing. I think science communication is such an important part of the things we do, and how like you need to be able to communicate what we're doing in the lab and why it's important and why people should care about it, because otherwise, no one's going to care about it. So it doesn't matter just for you to be an amazing researcher, you actually have to be a really good communicator in order for this to work. So I started to be an intern for this nonprofit called Beyond Benign. I was thrilled because Beyond Benign was co-founded by one of the co-founders of the 12 Principles of Green Chemistry, and also the first human in the world to have a PhD in green chemistry. So I was like, okay, I can learn from the source. And I could actually test out all of my communication skills at Beyond Benign too. And then I finished my PhD. I still didn't know what I was gonna do. So I did a postdoc at McGill, and with Professor Audrey Morse. Also, I really loved the project. It was involved, I was working with biomass and also shrimp and using mechanical chemistry, which I think is super cool. And then at the end of my postdoc, I really decided, like I think I can make a difference in the system outside of the system. So I decided to join Beyond Benign full time. So this is what I'm doing now, and this is why I'm here with you. So that's a summary of everything.
That's awesome, Juliana. I think it's so cool to me because I grew up in Canada, I've been here my whole life. And I think nowadays it's a lot easier to learn about chemistry and science that's happening all over the world. Um, but I always find it interesting how people find out about a place like Newfoundland, Canada. Like, and then you find chemistry there and you move there. And yeah, I can understand like growing up in Canada, the snow, it's such a culture shock, I'm sure, because everyone's like, oh, snow, it's so pretty. But then no one realizes that with snow comes the cold, the wind, and all of that, especially in Newfoundland. So, as someone who's also on the East Coast, I understand the Canadian winters can be hard. Kingston, I find it's a little bit better. So maybe you'll enjoy that here a little bit more. Another thing I wanted to comment on is you mentioned you were interested in marine biology. When I was growing up as well, I also liked biology a lot, but I just had a hard time studying it. My brain just doesn't work that way. I'm much more analytical or mathematical thinking, so that's why I ended up going more towards chemistry. So it's always interesting to hear other people who had an interest in that and then found their way to chemistry as well. Um, and I really like that you brought up about science communication because it is challenging, even for someone who is an English native speaker. It's still really hard to communicate science. So I can imagine that's an even bigger barrier when English is not your first language. And I experienced that firsthand as well when I did my research exchange in Japan. Um, my supervisor there made his master's student who spoke purely Japanese most times to present his research in English to me. And he would always apologize, saying, I'm sorry if it's not clear. And I'm like, listen, if you asked me to present in Japanese, you wouldn't have any clue what I'm talking about. So I always think it's a good thing to bring up that I applaud all the people who English is your second language and trying to present these complex topics like in chemistry.
Yeah. Sorry, just to add something
Yeah.
there, Emily, I thought it was really cool that you said, but also like I think it's also a challenge, but it's also an opportunity. I feel like because English was not my first language, I had to try and find other ways to convey the message that I wanted. And like through like, I don't know, infographics, cool animations and other things. So I think to me it was also an opportunity because I didn't have that skill to try and improve another one. So yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's a great
Yeah.
point. They all forms of communication help play into that.
Yeah.
So, looking back at kind of your graduate and your postdocs experiences, were there any moments for you or maybe mentors who had like a lasting impact that really helped your trajectory to where you are today?
Yeah, so I think like mentorship was and still is such a big part of my journey and what how I ended up in life. But as I mentioned, my PhD supervisor friend, she is still a lot of like a big part of my life. We're still in contact. We see each other in conferences all the time. But she really inspired me to embrace this aspect of myself, of all the communication I wanted to do. And also she volunteered me to do a lot of things, which was like, why am I doing this in first place? And then just like those things that I did, they connect somehow to other things that I was doing. So I was really thankful for her because I feel like some supervisors sometimes they might be like, okay, I just want you to be in the lab doing research and that's all. So she was really helpful in that sense of making me go outside of my comfort zone and do things that I never thought I was gonna be doing. So I think mentorship was super important. And also even like outside after I decided to leave academia, I talked to a lot of people because of my volunteer work, that they were in a situation where they had different jobs. They were not profs, they were not or in the industry people. They had different types of jobs and careers, and that just opened my mind to all the things I could do if I was not feeling comfortable where I was. So I think mentorship played the most important role. And I think Fran, just shout out to Fran, she's a big part of this in this whole career and journey.
Yeah, I think we talk a lot on this podcast about how critical mentorship is. And I think it's critical at the supervisor stage, but also like as you are mentoring people in your lab and interacting with everybody, it plays a role and can be really impactful. So I think it's always important to highlight. And you started to touch on here. So we talked about this before the podcast as well, or even on the podcast before as well, is a lot of people, especially in chemistry, I find it's kind of programmed in us to go down this traditional academia route. Like if you're getting your master's, your PhD, and then you're going to go on and become a prof. But I think those jobs nowadays are a lot harder to get because there's a lot more people. It's just the way the chemistry research is nowadays. But there are a lot of other jobs out there that are non-academic. So I think it's really interesting that you were able to kind of navigate that and find your way into a not-for-profit company. Can you talk a little more about like what that process was like for you? Did you plan to go to the academia route and then switch, or did you always think you were leaning more outside of academia when you went through?
Well, to be honest, it was a painful process. It was very painful in terms of like I felt I was betraying, and my community. I felt like I was, disappointing people because of the things I chose. So, and you know, people were not disappointed, and I was not betraying anyone at the end of the day. But I did feel like that because you're just immersed in that environment all the time, and you think that people expect you to do some things. But what really happened to me was like I felt like I was I like teaching kind of, but I was so drained all the time because I wanted to do a good job, and I felt like this was not being a sustainable thing in my opinion. And when I talk to people outside of my career, especially like Natalie O'Neill, who also worked at Beyond Benign, and also Amy, our co-founder, they left like well-established jobs in academia to go and do that. So to me, it was like, okay, this is a possibility and I can do that too. So making the decision was very hard, but once I did it, I did feel okay with that. It was easy, like it's not something that I was like regretting myself. I was not like thinking about it all the time because a lot of the skills that I acquired through my PhD, I use them all the time, project management, I have to be there just organizing my projects. I do go to conferences all the time, chemistry conferences. I talk to people from research. I talk to people from education. I'm still like very immersed in the world of chemistry, just in a different way. So like making the decision was very hard, but once I did it, it was fine. So I feel like just trying to be very aware of what your heart tells you to do. It sounds very cliche, but it really like the whole world was telling me like, do this. And I was trying, oh my God, I'm going to betray everyone if I do this. But once I actually decided, okay, I'm going to do this and give it a try, it felt very natural to me.
Yeah, I think that's a really good message for everybody too, is taking a chance and sometimes doing something that scares you can be really worth it. And like looking at all the different options that are out there is really important. And I think a lot of people feel that. I think change is always scary, no matter what that change is. I think everyone feels that even when you're going from like bachelor's to choosing a master's to choosing your PhD, or choosing to then go, do I stay and continue or do I go get a job? It's often that. And I always find that people who talk about it after, they usually are happy with what choice you made. You just gotta find what aligns with what you enjoy best and continue. Or at least that's the method I've always taken as well. Because I also felt the same way that like you had this pressure to become a prof or come into academia. And for me, I'm like, yeah, I would like that, but then there's always different things that you have to weigh with that, right? It can take a lot of time and a lot of years and a lot of really hard work to get into those positions. And I had that same feeling of like, am I disappointing people? Am I not meeting my full potential? But then I think I'm the same way as you, is now that I'm in my current role too, which is now kind of research administration, I'm still making an impact. I still get to be involved with it. I still get to do all the stuff I really enjoy, and there's nothing wrong with that. So I think it's really important message for everybody to look at your options and that you don't have to stay on a certain path if you feel like it's what you're being forced down. You should go with what makes you happy. And nothing against becoming a prof or anything like that. The profs are all great. It's just not for everybody. So I think that's the important thing to consider there. And you started to mention as well, I think earlier when we were talking about mentorship and then getting voluntold to do things or being part of these different initiatives. I think that's very common in grad school. But sometimes I think it's coming from supervisors in a good place of they know these opportunities can be very beneficial to you. So you've been involved in some amazing global initiatives, which I think is really cool. So I'll just list a couples for anyone who isn't aware. But Juliana was like the co-chair of the Global Conversation on Sustainability, which is a joint project of the International Younger Chemists Network and the International Union of Pure and Applied Chemistry. You were also a national representative on IUPAC's Committee on Chemical Research. You're a coordinator member of the United Nations Environment Program and an associate editor for Time Sustainability and Circulatory Now Journal. Like, I think it's amazing that you do all these different initiatives. Can you tell us about which one of those, or which, if maybe not one of those exact ones, but some of the other initiatives that you've been involved with, which one was your favorite and why?
Um, Favorite, it's a very difficult cool word right now. Um, but I really enjoyed all of them due to the set of skills that they've given me. I really like I feel like you can learn both sides of the things you think of. One of them that I really think it was very interesting, and of course a lot of them don't have anything related to green chemistry or sustainability at all. I just thought it would be a good thing for me to be a part of and see how the world works.
Mhm.
But one of those was at the Chemical Institute of Canada. So they had a governance task force to kind of see, like, to analyze the structure of the organization and try to like make something that it's better or like increase the performance and yeah, just to do things. And to me, the CIC was just like conferences, like as a student, I was like, oh yeah, what the CIC does, conferences. And by being in this task force, I really understood the whole concept of like, empowering the Canadians and the people in Canada who are doing chemistry or the technologists or the engineers to actually support these people and catalyze this change, which is something that as a student, I never thought that the CIC would do because my brain was like conferences. So actually understanding the whole role of societies in our community was really cool. So that was something that I really enjoyed. Being part of the major group for chemicals and waste at the UNEP was also very interesting because I never thought that there were so many things to make a decision possible. So it's just very fun to see how things work in different ways and what's your role on these things. So I do say a lot of yeses to a lot of things, which can be a problem. I think I'm trying to learn how to say no still. But I feel like all of these volunteer opportunities, they gave me something, some skill or some perspective, some different perspective of the things I would like to do, not do, or just keep doing. So
Yeah.
that was not a good answer, sorry.
No, that was a great answer. And I think it's a really important thing. Like you said, it's building soft skills or different types of skills. It's really important to be able to do your research and things like that. But a lot of times in academia or in industry, positions, you need those other kind of soft skills. Like you said, it kind of is building onto your communication and those different things that it's not always a thing that gets taught to you in the lab, but it's really important to try to value that and incorporate it into your learning as well. So I always like to recommend to people to take a chance. And I agree, you don't want to burn yourself out and say yes to everything, but finding the ones that really align with your interests and what you like and find something that you enjoy doing is important as well, especially in grad school. Because the other thing with that too, in grad school and looking for these careers is everyone does get bogged down with their research, and often it's nice to have kind of more fun activities to do as well. So we are getting close to the end of our time. So I think I'll maybe wrap up here and before we transition to the audience questions. So what final advice would you want to give to everyone listening today, whether they're international students, women in STEM, or just any kind of researcher who's might be in the same situation or going through some of the same struggles, like in not just struggles and all the benefits and everything that you've experienced?
So before, so whenever I was young, and this question came up in panel discussions and things, I would always say like, get out of your comfort zone, try new things, which I think it's so important to me. I've always had this yes attitude. And that's why I moved countries, and I'm trying to say yes, and I've been involved with these different projects. Just by saying yes, let's try and let's see what happens, and just trying to make the best out of this moment. But as I got older, I really think that's something very important, and this is also very cliche, but it's the whole empathy aspect of everything we do, and just trying to treat people the way you'd like to be treated. I know it's also very simple, but as I went through my career path, you see all of these hierarchy, bureaucracy, and just people forget where they came from, and they forget they're dealing with people who are struggling every day, who also have issues in their lives. So my motto is just try to be gentle, kind, and like hold true to your values, which is something we can't forget. And I think we shouldn't. So it's very cliche, very simple, but I think this can go a long way. So this is my advice now. Just be yourself, be authentic, be gentle, honest, and just care about people.
I think that's a really, really great message to end everybody with. And I think it's kind of, to me, that's the root too of all of this EDI work, is just being good people to everyone. Be kind, be nice, try to understand, gaining that perspective and learning about different cultures. And that's the whole point of these podcasts too, to learn a little bit more about somebody that you might not have met before. So with that, we do have 5 minutes left. So I'll hand it over to anyone in the live audience. If you're interested in commenting or asking a question, you can raise your hand or you can put it in the chat.
Can I start? First, thank you. That was amazing. Can I ask advice again? What can we do better, do you think, in terms of valorizing other careers? Because, for me, I'm really proud of the fact that I have students going to a whole bunch of careers. And I think that this idea that, the only valuable career is one that is the same as mine is really kind of narcissistic and painful. Any advice on how we can, as a community, do better?
Let's see, always with the hard questions. Um, so I think that I don't have an answer specifically, but I think that what would help me as a student to actually feel, I'm talking a very personal sense,
Sure.
like feel, but it would be like knowing that these things exist, like in my work environment. So like if I had the opportunity to talk to people when I was in my PhD, like it was something that people would come to my university to talk specifically about that. I think that would help students like to see that this is a possibility and see value to it. I didn't wish it was something that I would have, acquired outside of my university and outside of my PhD environment, So I feel like maybe if we had the higher education institutions actually showing the students what these other people are doing and the value, without the students have to look for this information, would be something very important in that sense of actually
Great
making
idea.
the other work better.
Yeah, like a careers day even or something like that. That's a fabulous idea. I think it'd be
Yeah.
great to have more speakers from industry and things like that too, and other options like we're doing today. So I think that's super. Thank you.
I'll build on that too. I think it's very common in high schools and things like that to have these career fairs, but often it's like narrowed, right? It's like you're going to career into science, but then once you're in the science, okay, well, what kind of careers are there out there? Because I think I found I struggled with that too, in my earlier parts of my degrees as well, trying to figure out, well, what do I want to do after this? What can I do with the science that I actually enjoy doing? So I agree. I think that would be a great idea, having kind of career fairs more focused specifically for the disciplines that you're in or the different types of jobs. Does anyone have any other questions or comments? No? All right, well, we can end it there. I always do like to end on a fun question. So the last question I always ask everybody, even if they're non-scientist or chemist, is what's your favorite chemical or element and why?
Okay, I like carbon because I worked with biochar in my PhD. It's a carbon material. I worked with it a lot. So I saw carbons every day. There's no specific reason for that. I just think it's cool. And also Fran, whenever she went to a conference like the ACS, you can have little elements, and she gave me a carbon. So I was like, okay, this is me now. So yeah, that's my favorite element. And yeah, I just like to thank you all for the invitation. It was super fun. Never done a podcast before, so I hope that wasn't too boring. And I have LinkedIn, Instagram, Blue Sky. So if you want to chat at any point, please feel free to reach out to me. And I'm happy to talk at any point. So thank you.
Thank you so
Yeah,
much.
so I'm in Kingston. Yeah, just we can grab a coffee or something.
Super.
Awesome. Thanks, Juliana. It was really great having you here. I love your perspective and hearing about your experiences and how you ended up here in Kingston with us. So that's really great.